You're watching Experience Comic Culture and Sales. Streaming live daily to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
2, 1.
Time for Minute to Skim It. Here are the Experience. We're so thankful you're here. We'd love some thumbs up, some ringing some bells, some subscribing, sharing, all of our favorite things. I have to tell you, just as a aside, that I had a really awesome meeting with my rep at Penguin Random House today, who gave me all the inside information. So I'm going to be, just know that in the coming shows, I'll be dropping as many hints as I can. I don't want to ever be cut off from that inside information, but I'll tell you guys what I think is important to get. If you like reading comics, this has nothing to do with collecting parts. It's just that if you like reading great storylines. This week was an interesting release week.
Very.
And by interesting, so for y'all that might not know, the release schedule for some books is different depending on which distributor you use. So in this case, there was some books that I read that Kyle read last week and talked about, which tells you how much sleep I've gotten that I didn't remember.
Well, that's fine. It'll be a different perspective on the book.
Well, and as I recall, one of them, I didn't remember what happened. But, I read it in the afternoon, and by the show, I was like, yeah, I read this. It's a book. It's shaped like a book. There are pages with words.
You can't laugh at me anymore in my old age that I occasionally have to reopen the book to be like, what did I read? Oh, yeah, that's the one that had the things.
Well, I would be doing the same thing all the time if I actually had the books.
Well,
but, I'd have to be like, okay, I got to download the PDF. It just,
And I also wanted to spend like half a second congratulating Kyle and his team on making the World Food Championships, in which they had a good showing, and I'm very proud of them.
Yeah, we wind up, give or take, the 15th best barbecue team in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Disappointing.
Why is that disappointing?
Well, because
this
is something for another day.
And being like, dadgummit, I didn't make it. I'm like, whatever.
It's something for another day, but basically it's this. I'm not disappointed in how we finished. Okay. I'm disappointed because I think we could have done better had we known more what we were getting ourselves into when we got there. It's that the competitor in me is disappointed because, I know, that I could have done better. But I didn't know that I could have done better before I got there.
Hey, John.
That kind of thing. It's that thing where when you lose a game of Risk and you're like, you know what, if I'd have just started with Asia, I'd have been better.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Gotcha. Okay, well, let's get into the 2 good reviews and the 1 person rambling, shall we? Well, I'll let y'all guess who's who on that one.
Snap.
I'm the Rambler.
Are you the Rambler?
Yes.
That was not who I was going to pick. I was going to pick me.
Speaking of you, Miss Jen, I believe you're first.
Oh, cool. All right. I'm going to be the first person to say there's 2 things that are always going for any book if you see them going on. 1, is it Alien? And 2, is it Declan? And they're always going to be good if this is true. This is, I know that you guys are like, oh no, they've restarted it again, and now I don't know what to do. It's okay. This is exactly in line with all the series that have been going on with Marvel for Alien. It goes back and touches on all of the major events. So if you haven't read any of the previous Alien series and you're like, I don't know if I can jump in here, it's okay. It in a very awesome way takes you through all of the different, where do the aliens show up first, which LV-426, LV-829, whatever they are, where do they show up and when. This one's kind of cool because it actually has a Yutani as a character, which you're so used to just having them say Weyland Yutani, and that's a company, and you'll be like, okay, well, that's an evil corporation. When I actually get to see a Yutani. And this book takes place underwater. And I've always been terrified by swimming aliens because there's really, I mean, like, you could have all the guns or whatever in the world, but you can't really get very far underwater, especially if there's something that's aqueous and can move as like how lithely as they do. But yeah, it's a good, scary alien book. They can do no wrong in my case, I guess, unless you just like wrote a book that didn't have aliens in it that was called Alien. That would be bad.
I was waiting for Kyle to add something, but it looks like he's just going to shake his head.
It's like, nope.
All right. Dune.
Ooh, baby.
Been a while since I've read this one.
Sure, Lyle.
It's always had good art and an interesting story pattern to me, where it feels like vignettes that tie together because we're kind of hop from territory to territory, but it's all still connected. I say this about this book every time I read it. And again, I know Dune came way before it, but this is like sci-fi Game of Thrones. There's betrayals, there's death, and there's reveals, just the whole shebang. This is a book that I would personally tell you, if it sounds interesting, you should go to your LCS, pick up the trade, because I think there's 1 or 2 trades out by now. Or they just released a really sweet looking hardcover last month. I looked that up while I was looking up the covers, and binge it. This feels to me like if I were to sit down and read all these back to back to back to back,
Mm-hmm.
it would be a better story to me instead of a we're here kind of thing. Just that's a personal thing for me. I think this would be a better binge, but it's still a really cool story, even if you don't know too much about Dune outside of the Kyle MacLachlan movie from way back in the day, because I still haven't seen the new one. But I thought it was a pretty cool book. So
I'm assuming that because the 2 authors here are the exact authors that wrote the novelization, if you like Dune, House Harkonnen, which has some pretty steamy and things that might make you throw up in your mouth a little bit, things that happen in relation to, some of the Atreides house. It's if you haven't read the novelization, you should. And if you don't like novels, but you want to know what happens so that you can understand the relationship, like who Jessica is, it's an important series to read.
Kyle keeps tripping me out because it feels like he's about to say something. He just stops. Okay.
I'll be honest. Kyle's just working really hard to keep his eyes open right now.
Right. He's doing good. And also, I will say that I was at a movie theater this weekend as a pop-up store, and they had like 6 trailers running all, forever and ever in the exact same order in the main lobby. And Dune was one of them. And I kept on finding myself staring at it, even though I'd seen it, roughly 100 times. So it looks like the second chapter of the movie is going to be beautiful.
Awesome.
Oh, this is me. Deviant. I saw a lot of pre-press about this, a lot of excitement about this cool image book. I know that some members of the reading crew see Tinian and be like, man, there's so much of his stuff out there. But Tiny Onion as a company puts out really great stuff.
I also read this one last week, but ironic. But ironically, it didn't come out everywhere last week. In fact, it didn't come out anywhere last week. They just sent it to us a week early.
Oh, they
And
did
it
it a
actually
week
comes
ago.
out this week. So shame on you, James Tinian, or, well, probably not James Tinian, but whoever James Tinian has hired to watch his Dropbox folders.
This was heck of a good horror book that is also Christmas adjacent. This is kind of cool because it has events that are happening in what looks like an apartment store, where there is like a, like the department store Santa and elves, that there is a bunch of murdery stuff occurring, but also there is what looks like probably maybe Tinian, although it doesn't say so, interviewing a serial killer in prison. And the discussion is really kind of cool because the serial killer is saying, what are you doing? What is it that you're hoping to do here? And he's like, well, I want to write a graphic novel about this. But the serial killer is basically berating him. Like, you haven't told me any angle that you've got that would make me want to, read this graphic novel you're going to be doing about me. It's so funny to see him like, did this really happen? Did you go and interview somebody and get berated about his ideas? So anyway, this is, as you see, there is a Santa Claus suit wearing serial killer. Is it the guy who's in the prison? Is it somebody else? And what is that serial killer saying? Because he's mumbling something. And I don't believe that for a hot second that is just, weird, growly, mumbling sounds. I bet you anything that whatever he is mumbling is actually two words that are something that are important to the storyline. You heard it here.
Humbug.
If I remember correctly, I think it was Miss Jen that said last week that she thought it was the old man from Home Alone.
No, that was me.
That was you? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not that clever.
All right. Dungeons and Dragons Fortune Finder. I got to stop reading the Dungeons and Dragons books.
You keep picking on them.
I know. Because on some level, I feel like I deserve to be tortured by Dungeons and Dragons. And on another level, I feel like at some point they won't let me down. But neither of those things has been true thus far. The thing about Dungeons and Dragons Fortune Finder is the first 15 pages are amazing.
Mm-hmm.
It's great. If you like Vox Machina, especially if you like Scanlan from Vox Machina, this is the book for you. For the first 15 or so pages. Then it gets very exponentially. It gets very explainy. And kind of loses all of the good things they had going for them in the first 15 issues. The first, it's, you start with your main character captured by a bad guy, or a group of bad guys, and essentially trying to, wit and guile his way out of it. And then what you come to 15 pages in or so is the explanation of why he's in this situation. This is like one of those TikToks that goes, yeah, that's me. And if you're wondering how I got into this mess, well, let me tell you. But it doesn't, the second 15 pages does nothing to ingratiate you to this original character. Right? It's just, I don't remember anything about myself, and I came to in a closet, and then these guys, and I've got to get away from these guys. And it loses all, the first 15 pages felt light, it had comedy, felt witty, felt snappy. It's like, I'm smarter than you, but I'm going to talk my way out of the situation, even though you have all the power. And it just went into traditional kind of Dungeons and Dragons kind of, oh, well, I'm a bard and yada, 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 and so on and so forth. And almost feels like it was written by two different people. Like the language changed, the feeling of the language changed. So while I think the first 15 pages were great, the second 15 pages didn't jive to me, and that kind of turned me off to the book as a whole. That said, I like this character of Finder, who's the main character. I think he kind of has a Peter Quill type energy, a Star-Lord type energy, which I think could and will be fun in this universe. So I'm interested to keep reading. I just think the second 15 pages didn't execute as well as the first 15.
You know who you need to come and have read it instead and give the review? You can get Joe Monteprettyface.
Joe Manganiello?
Yeah.
I'd have a better chance. I'd have a better chance of getting from his same D&D campaign, Paul White. But no, like I said, it's Zeb Wells. So I'm willing to say that the second half of the book was something that editorial made him do, and he's going to come back to that first half later.
They just said explainerize.
Right.
It's a real word. I made it up. Hey, super awesome way to get yourself excited for the Deadpool 3 movie. This is a huge, thick book called Deadpool 7 Slaughters. And of course, it's 7 stories told by really great creators that you love. Many, many tales. Too many to explain what each of them is. That's kind of silly. So just imagine all unique things, which I think the last story almost, I peeked at the last one because I can't, of course, read every single one of them and actually have time for the rest of them. But in this case, it looks like there was maybe a proposal of marriage. It's a very odd thing considering most of these are, just big kill fests. But by the way, I think they made it public today, if I'm not wrong, that dog pool is part of the film. So run out there and find your dog pools. I think he appears first in one of the Deadpool Corps. Have fun. Happy hunting.
That's amazing. That's amazing if that's true.
I just want head pool. I don't care about any character. I want head
the
pool.
Little beanie. Yes. Absolutely.
Do you guys have any favorite characters in the Deadpool universe that you want to see? Throw them in the comments. I want to see what y'all like.
Yes.
I like swimming pool.
Zenpool's pretty cool too. Ministry of Compliance. Okay, so this was skimmed because it is a 58-page number 1. 68 if you count the 10 little things in the back, like the different posters and the little story synopsis in the back. This is another sci-fi book. This one starts out with a decapitation, and the violence and gore just ramps up from there. There's humanoid aliens, espionage, holes through chests, heads just exploding everywhere. It's so much more. I'm 100% here for this book. I will definitely be rereading this because I know I missed something. But this story was more tangled than the drawer I keep the extra wires in because I'm going to use those wires someday. But from what I did read of this book was fantastic. It is very long. Like I said, I skimmed it. There's some panels in here, some violence in here. And again, I'm here for it. So if any of that sounds interesting, go and check this one out.
I love when they have character designs that when they're wearing impractical clothes. So this is a great sword fighting outfit. You got to have your big long cloak tail to be able to like swing at people and kind of like get in their face or tangle or their feet around. But stiletto heels, come on. I guess they're good weapons. Maybe you just stab someone in the face with those.
That is the proper assassin gear right there.
Dutch, the book that Kyle read last week, and I wasn't 100% paying attention in my brain, obviously. This is Joe Casey and Nathan Fox taking on what is an old 90s character group in, I believe, Cyberforce, right? Is that where Dutch is?
Yes.
This is kind of cool. So imagine you took the stuff from Cyberforce, moved yourself ahead many, many years, and made it kind of feel like a Western. So in this one, Dutch is hanging out all by himself out in what looks like a big kind of like flat ranch land, and he's got a really, what I would call a mid-century modern house that he's living in out there, which is kind of weird. I guess that's kind of a ranch. And he is kind of reminiscing about the old days, and pulls out his old cybernetic arm, weirdly, which I feel like has to have set off the events that happen next, in which things he thought were long past dead seem to be coming to life, to come after him. It also is really good, kind of goes back and has them reminisce about the old team. So it doesn't really name hardly any of the characters by name, but and it's not what I would call a superhero book, but you just have to know that that's where the storyline is from. I would say this is more, it made me feel more like a Western Terminator story. Ooh, who got to read this one? Oh,
Kyle,
no.
you're muted.
Kyle is muted.
See, this is what happens when you cough, like during the middle of somebody else's review and you mute yourself. So I read this one, and this is the first collaboration between Image and the new company Ghost Machine that Jeff Johns is sort of running. Here is my problem. I forget Volume 1 of Geiger. And I need to not forget. And here's why I forget. I remember the first 5 or 6 issues, but then the rest I read on in the trade, and I kind of flew through it. And so there are salient details about the main character that I'm forgetting.
So where does it take place in the storyline timeline?
This is before Volume 1.
Okay.
But after he becomes Geiger.
Okay.
So basically what you're seeing is your main character from the first volume and your main character in this book, obviously the Geiger character, sort of existing in his world and thinking the way he thinks, almost like a first-person shooter. Like if I was the easiest way the part of this book feels is it feels like the beginning of Fallout, or one of those where you are in the world as it exists and you're thinking the thoughts the main character is thinking. But then it has cut scenes to the world that exists outside of your brain. So it's all the people that led to his creation, the people who are trying to kind of shut him down, right? And the thing about it is that I don't remember. What I don't remember is at the end of Volume 1 if we left things on a good or a bad note. Because that will inform kind of how this one is going. Mm-hmm. But basically, he winds up killing a bunch of people. All in the hunt for his wife. Trying to save his wife. But he doesn't realize that it's too late.
So this is before he knows about the bunker. Right. Okay.
Well, he knows about the bunker.
But what's happening in the bunker?
He doesn't know what's happening in the bunker. Right. And so you kind of have a disjointed story that is filling in gaps of an already kind of disjointed story. And so, unfortunately, my review of Geiger Ground Zero is this book was so cool. I've loved this concept since it started coming out. But in order to fully grasp Geiger Ground Zero, go back and read Geiger Volume 1 relatively close at hand. Or at least have it as a reference, because otherwise you're going to be like, okay, now where does this line go to, and what does this mean, and who are we talking about? Like, who is that person? So just know this is maybe not a great place to jump in on Geiger, but it is a fun start to a new Geiger story.
I'm glad they made this one because this does fill in a gap for somewhere I always kind of wondered what had gone on, because the first issue basically shows him putting his family in the bunker and him not be able to get inside the nuclear strike, and then it jumps forward a big amount of time in which he already is fully this character and has been doing things, and you don't know what they were.
And that's kind of this is kind of the same, but the big jump forward is not as big a jump.
Okay. Excellent. Speed Force. This is awesome. As it says, it comes out of the pages of the Flash series. And it has the character that you can see that's upside down there is the Korean speedster. I forget their last name. Dadgummit. Should have written that down. And that's Wally West, but he goes by a longer first name. And I can't remember what it is either. So you can see I'm not a normal DC character reader. But I will tell you that I love the book. It starts out with them kind of just having like a Wallace, thank you. I knew it was some cool name, but I wasn't gonna be able to pull up. So these guys, it's a very lighthearted beginning of a story where they are hanging out and basically playing video games as they discuss the fact that they are basically on rotation. So there is a Flash out there doing flashy things, but then everyone else gets to have a day off, which is nice. You get to see a day off on the day of Speedsters. But then all of a sudden they have an event happen that they get pulled away to go and try to figure out what's going on, in which there are these, best way to explain them is twin speedsters that I don't remember ever seeing before. Bartholomew. I like that better. And so there is like good speedster stuff and development and new character stuff. This is a good one to pick up. This might be a great place for if you're a speed reader, already, or if you have maybe, this is perfect for if you have a young teen, regular teen in your life that you're like, I want to get them into reading speedster stuff for the holidays. This would be a great shot to throw them in on. I think they'll like it because this is a really diverse team that they're introducing here. So it'll feel really great. Ooh, Perillo.
This is a Red Sonia book that I hope we spend some time with. The team on this, I hope they keep going with this one for a while. I really enjoy this Red Sonia. It's Sonia traveling around, freeing people, fighting monsters, or in this case, in part of the book, freeing a monster, and just laying waste to bad guys. There are like two big twists in this book. One of them is how she frees a monster, and the other one happens at the very end of the book. The art is great. The story is solid. And I think people who are much bigger fans of the character than I am probably really appreciate this more than I do. And I'd like to know if there is anybody out there that's reading this series, if they like it as much as I do or more. Because like I said, I'm not the biggest fan of Red Sonia, but even I am like, okay, this book is pretty great. I'm just interested in hearing other people's thoughts. Like I want to hear somebody who is a big Dynamite fan and Red Sonia is their character that they love. If this character or if this characterization of the character is more like the Red Sonia that people tell me about, because we've read a ton of Red Sonia books. And the only thing I ever knew of Red Sonia was the Bridget Nielsen movie. So I didn't have really too much to go on. So I'd like to hear other fans of this book, what they think about this book, because my goodness, I could read this. If this was the only Red Sonia book we got from now on, this is definitely the one that I'd want to read.
I read this one, even though you read it for review, Jay. I've just been reading it to keep up with the series. And so I will chime in on this. I've called Dynamite out not a little bit, kind of a lot on these shows for being out here, as the kids say, doing too much. At one point, we had 6 Red Sonia stories. And you know what you couldn't do when they had 6 Red Sonia stories? Keep them straight. You didn't know which Red Sonia was which Red Sonia. Coming down to just the 2 that are coming out now.
Yep.
That are vastly different styles really makes it nice, because you can definitely keep them separate. And this feels like traditional Red Sonia, like you met in the Marvel books, in the Conan the Barbarian books, in that Edgar Rice Burroughs style story, like that John Carter Warlord of Mars style, that, Deja Thoris kind of style. This feels right. Whereas the other one feels modern. And I think that really helps this book. I am thoroughly enjoying this Red Sonia as a Red Sonia fan, more than I've enjoyed a Red Sonia from Dynamite in probably 2 years. So,
High praise.
yeah, I like this one a lot.
Hey, Pablo.
Okay. So this book, I'm going to say this before I get into this book. I'm very tired. It's been a long 10 days for me. And so I had to read this book a lot slower than I would have liked to have read this book on a day when I'm trying to get caught up from being on vacation. Only because it was so specific and paced just a certain kind of way that you have to kind of dig in to feel like if you like the book or not. And so the premise of Lotus Land is that the world exists in such a way that we've sort of robbed it of all of its resources. And we kind of live essentially in a bubble. Right? Big cities are bubbles. And our main character is a former cop who has moved out away from civilization, still in the bubble, but away from civilization, out where the only other things that live there are him, his son, and the trees that create the oxygen for the bubble. Right?
You literally mean a bubble.
Yes.
Okay.
And he gets visited by his former partner. You find out he's an ex-cop. His former partner, and he gets dragged back in for one last case.
No, this is not going to end well. Daggum.
Well, and what you find is they fly him to what they call the Tree of Life. And the Tree of Life is the basis, is where they have the root system. And the root system is a system they've built that keeps the people who keep the world turning and other certain important people alive. If you're tied to it and the root system goes down, you die. And someone has tried to break in and destroy the root system. And that's not supposed to be possible. And this guy was involved in the creation of it. And you come to find out that the reason they bring him in and the reason he agrees to take it is that his son is directly connected. If this thing goes down, he loses his son.
Goodness.
And he's hunting an area of Portland where essentially people go to disappear, to find the person who broke into the root system, hunt down why they were able to do it, or why they did it, and who told them to. The other thing it's important to know is that magic exists. I gave that whole big long review and buried the lead of magic.
Nice.
If you've read Chew, it has some of those vibes. Maybe with a little bit less, cannibalism. If you've ever seen the episodes of Doctor Who where the doctor touches somebody's brain and reads their mind, that's a thing. So it has that ability too. And so you're interested to see what his powers do and how they're connected to all of this.
Took me a second to realize. I thought he was standing on a building overlooking everything. Didn't realize he was just a giant on the cover.
Yeah, the cover is disproportional. He is not actually a giant. That would make this book weird. I mean, not that it isn't weird already because, Tree of Life, but like weirder if he was also a giant.
I do like the effect of it, though, that it does look like there's pieces of the cover missing. Is it actually die cut?
I don't know. We have PDFs.
Okay. I'll have to mess around with it.
You would have more luck finding it there and checking it out.
Do like a good die cut that makes sense. All right, Godzilla Rivals, Mechagodzilla for true fans of Godzilla, I will say. In this issue, which is a single shot, I think, yep, one shot. You've got, it looks like an organization called, I think, Tracker, that appears to have way more control than it should. And that also includes being able to upload its own controlled AI to this Mechagodzilla, which they do call to action to fight regular Godzilla. But the kids down there at the bottom of the page, you can see kind of just buried in Mechagodzilla's chest there. They're not actually in his chest. They get into a little bit of shenanigans, trying to take down the corporation. So it's a pretty straightforward story. It's a kind of a heist. If you were talking about some cybercrime heist. And there's some really just gorgeous pages when there's actual battles between Mechagodzilla and Godzilla that are just frameable art, I'm telling you. So pretty. This is a big, thick book, by the way. It's not a skinny book.
There's a ton of rockets in this issue. Ton of rocket packs. Ton of them.
Oh, you can see them on the cover there.
Yeah.
Who's in those?
Well, it is a Rocketeer book, so you know Cliff is fighting Nazis. That's kind of like Cliff's thing.
Rocket Nazis doesn't sound good.
No, not at all. I mean, this is your typical story with these characters, and I don't mean that as a knock at all. It's just, it's a Rocketeer book. You kind of know what you're getting when you read it. If you've read Rocketeer before, you know what you're getting into. The art in this is spectacular. I am a sucker for the dark outlines of characters and things in this book. I love that darker outline. It just makes the art pop for me. And there's some shadowing in this book that is just top notch. I mean, I stopped reading and stared at one of these panels for like a minute and a half before I realized I need to keep reading the book. It was that good. There also feels, and I don't think this is really a spoiler, but there also feels like there's a cameo by Toby Jones, who was Arnim Zola in the MCU as a Nazi scientist. I don't know if that's what they meant to do, or it's just something that I saw because it's a short white guy that kind of looks like Toby Jones. But if you're a Rocketeer fan, and again, this is just like Red Sonia for me, until these shows, I've never read a Rocketeer comic before, but I love the movie. But I find myself more and more every time we get these comics in, I'm drawn to them, and I always have a good time reading them. So
Bronze is calling you out for breaking the rules of Minute to Skim It.
I do that so much by accident most of the time, and sometimes on purpose.
Bronze, you really don't want to. It's like when we very first started this show, like 7 or 8 years ago, the rules really were for my staff because we were just doing it ourselves. That you got to read as much as you could in a minute, and then you kind of said what you thought the book was about. So it was a little more funny that we were like, we got our best guesses in, This is actually much more helpful as a review show. We changed the Minute to Skim It rules back, long ago. So yeah, we
Yes,
spend
But
way more than a minute.
sometimes you fall asleep in the middle of a book because you're already exhausted,
Yeah.
and then you wind up only having a minute to skim it because the show starts in 90 seconds and you just woke up.
Yeah.
That might be true.
Those
Not
two.
saying it hasn't happened. That has happened to me.
Yeah. Those two review. This guy reviews.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So speaking of fighting Nazis, Project Rees. Now this came out last week, but it was kind of a weird week in terms of the PDFs we got, so I had to back up a week. Bronze, it happened to me on this very book. Here's the deal. Project Rees is sort of pushing me away from wanting to read it, in the sense that it's becoming more disjointed as the party becomes further split, right? When it started, the party was all together, and then you do that thing you do in Dungeons & Dragons where you split the party. And then you do that thing where you split the party again. And then you do that thing where you split the party again. And what's happening is my brain can't keep track of all the different story arcs that the team has now gotten itself into. This issue really has driven home something I felt about this book for now 2 issues, which is this is what would happen if basically Indiana Jones took place inside a Super Mario Brothers video game. Where every time you go down a path or down a tube, you find yourself in another world where, oh, now you're in a desert. Oh, now you're underwater. Oh, now you're in space. Like, every time they bifurcate the team, they're going somewhere different.
Bronze is
And
in
right, and I think it's a great concept. I really do, but again, we're getting a book once a month. And there's so many story arcs that it's hard to tie through lines together. This is one of those books that are super interesting, especially the storyline about the team that's having to fight Mecha Hitler with the metal plate face. That one is a super fun one because he's like a doofus who's really bad at being Mecha Hitler, but they're really bad at fighting him. So it's like this very balanced awfulness that almost feels like a comedy movie, like if Jack Black was playing Indiana Jones kind of situation.
That might be awesome.
I want this
Right?
movie now.
No, it super is. But then you get a page of that, and then it's like, okay, why are you underwater in spacesuits now? Like, and we're with different people. You don't fully understand. So this is a book that, in my opinion, is going to be served by being released in a paperback. And I think being able to binge it will pay off readers a little bit better.
I like that.
Kinda, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. I am super into whatever this is. Having not read anything related to Outsiders, I don't know if it's related to anything that's ever happened or if this team has ever existed before. I'm just that dumb about it. But I am down for whatever this is. So this is taking place in the catastrophic end pieces of the Gotham War, in which some people have left to be gone, and that includes the Batwoman there, who is for some reason in the most dangerous place for her to be standing, because it is a place where people are looking for people to kill. It's a previous war zone, not in America. And she gets approached by Mr. Fox there, who's standing there on the left-hand side, to offer her a job, which is weird because it is an active kind of like battle zone, in which he says, this is not bat or bat adjacent. There's nothing going on. Here's part of the pitch. It pays real well, and you don't have to wear a wig. And that's really what it takes to get her to be part of the team, which sounds like the way he's talking that there's a big team, but no, it's really just the 3 people on the front cover here. So if you like Bat Universe with no bat, but these people are actually trying to hunt down, he has a special term for it. We'll just call them previously unknown super objects, in which they have found under the earth, maybe under the ice, a 50-mile long something that so they're basically like the X-Files group, but for objects that you would find maybe in the Bat universe. And that character there on the right-hand side is a character called Drummer. No need to put the in front of it. It's just Drummer, who has wicked cool abilities, who's hired as an archaeologist, but is something else. So really cool. If you don't like Bat anything, you can jump in here and don't care about the fact that it's Bat and just enjoy the fact that it's super science fictions.
Did Drummer show up because they told him to come there?
No. Drummer was already part of the team before Batwoman shows up.
Did he show up to see a newborn king?
No.
Did he not have any gifts to bring other than his drum?
Oh, my goodness gracious.
Was he probably annoying the animals at the inn?
Kyle, I think you'd like this one, actually.
I've always loved The Outsiders. But I'm not huge on how do I put this? The Dawn of DC line right now. The few things I've read have been disappointing. So I'm looking for something to hook onto, so I'm going to try this one.
Hey, Dan.
Mr. Price.
All right.
Okay,
Jay, I'm a little angry at you.
As well you should be.
I wanted to read this one.
You probably should have. Look, in true Jay fashion, he grabbed a volume 2, number 1 of something without ever reading the first volume. There's a reason I did that, though. It was between this and Cthulhu, and I didn't want to read Cthulhu, to be honest.
That's fair.
So, this story, from what I can gather, is it's an EMT that gets the ancient power to siphon, away people's pain.
Oh.
The caveat, though, is he himself carries their pain, but it looks like he can use it.
Ooh.
It's an interesting premise. It's got, from what I can tell, an original power. I've never really seen a power like that before. Very good use of color. Like there's some panels in here where I'm like, these colors complement the book very well, complement the pages very well. It also it explores like the emotional trauma and how some people deal with it. It wasn't particularly my kind of story. So why did I choose it? I chose it because this was something I'd never heard of. So why not? You know, there might be somebody out there watching this right now who has read the first volume and loved it and could explain more to me. Or there could be somebody like me who's never heard of it before, but just hearing about it sounds interesting and they might want to pick it up. It's always cool to try new things. And like I said, I've never heard of this character, and just seeing it, I was like, you know what? It's going to beat Cthulhu, so I might as well read the thing that looks more interesting to me. So, and this was interesting. I just, like I said, not reading the first volume, I'm pretty sure a lot of it was lost on me, but it was interesting.
So he can use physical pain and emotional pain?
Yeah, because I think there's at one point in the book, it talks about how somebody teaches him to also take joy from people and use it.
Yeah, Siphon is the ultimate empath, right? Whatever you're feeling, if Siphon needs it to do what he needs to do, he will take it from you.
But then you don't have it anymore, right? Oh, wow.
Yeah. So think about Rogue and her ability as an X-Men, where she can essentially siphon somebody's mutant powers. Siphon can do that with your feels. Kind of like a Sin Eater, but also like if your therapist was kind of a problem. I really enjoyed Volume 1, by the way. I'm interested to see how Volume 2 goes.
Cute.
Okay.
Cool show.
So this is issue 1 of book 2 of Robert Jordan's The Wheel of Time. I didn't know that. If this had been issue 1 of book 1, I probably would have read it and understood more. I have no idea what the heck is happening, why the heck it is happening, who the heck these people are, or any of this. I even reached out to some friends of mine who are like literary people to be like, have you read Wheel of Time? Can someone tell me what's happening? I don't get it. I'm just going to be honest. This is absolutely not my style. This is more high fantasy Game of Thronesian with demons and things that I'm just not into that kind of stuff. But I wanted to give it a shot because it isn't what I would be into normally, and I want to have an opportunity to like something new. And here's what I'm going to say for this book. They could have took all the words out of the book, not put any of the words in. And by the way, some of the lettering in this book is abjectly, and I would say this to Nick, and I would say this to anybody at Dynamite, whoever your editor is needs to get their head out of their backside on the lettering in this book. There are entire lettering panels that are illegible because you've chosen this weird font. Okay? Just know that. But none of that matters because the art on this book tells the whole story without the words. This could literally be a silent issue. And with a few grunts and groans, you would know what's happening. And so that, I think, speaks higher than anything, right? Like, in terms of why I will keep reading this book is because the art is telling the story, even when the writing isn't doing a great job of it. So just know that this book is gorgeous. It really does help to, like if you can watch the Amazon original series first, maybe you'll know what's happening. But I didn't, and I don't. And I'm just excited to look at the pictures.
No, Polar Nights. It is like a live action. It's really good.
Yeah. The live action. Yeah, I'm going to go watch the live action and then come back to this book and see how I feel.
And I will tell you, I haven't read any of the novelization stuff. So I went in, my first exposure to Wheel of Time was the first season, and they just put out the second season. So you get 2 seasons to watch.
Like I said, I'm gonna go watch it before I read before I come back to this comic and see if it helps. But super pretty.
Ooh, Superior Spider-Man for those fans of you that love Doc Ock messing around in a Spider-Man body. And in this book, you get to definitely see Superior Spider-Man full on embrace that Ock problem, in which he gets real cocky and mean. And this is a great place if you've been following Spider-Boy and you want to keep up with him. He is in this book, and they continue on with the whole story line where he seems to know all about Spider-Man and says that he's been interacting with him for a long time, but no one remembers him at all. Like, he's just a big hole in their universe. They have no idea. He, like, despite the fact he's awesome and he's fit right in, no one really knows anything about him except for what he tells them is true. So I don't know. He seems like an earnest kid. He's like a teenager with red hair and freckles. So he seems a fairly harmless character. And he's the main book that he's in, Spider-Boy, is actually a really great place to hand to kids because it is very kid friendly, that series. This is because it's Superior Spider-Man, this is a little more adult. It's definitely firmly T, or I think it just says T on there, so you're fine. But yeah, pretty brutal. Great development. If you don't know anything about the storyline beforehand, it does have, like all great Marvel books now, has a little synopsis at the front to keep you caught up from even before. Like if you didn't know Doc Ock and Superior are the same thing, then there you go.
All right. Yeah, that was it. We there weren't a lot. This was kind of a lighter release week, I think.
It was really.
So I think that boded well for us. I do want to say this. It's super important to all of us here on The Experience, especially on this show, that you visit your local comic shop. I was on vacation last week. I visited 4 comic book shops.
Nice.
In and around the greater Dallas Metroplex.
Go see Jeremy, I guess.
I didn't, only because it wound up being an hour drive from my hotel by a Uber. And I wasn't, I love Jeremy, but I think even Jeremy would have slapped me around for spending that kind of money. So I didn't make it to Jeremy's shop, but I made it to several others, and it was great. So visit comicshoplocator.com to find comic shops nearby to you. No matter where you go, it will tell you where there are comic shops nearby to you, and you can go and visit them. If there was something here that you saw that you're interested in, please pick it up from your local comic shop tomorrow or this week. And remember, guys, spending an extra $5 a week at your comic shop means your comic shop gets to stay around. So please, please, please make sure you're picking up your stuff, and if you can afford it, spend a few extra bucks. Right now,
the new saying is spend $5 to keep them alive.
Right. There's a lot of folks out there struggling right now, and you can go a long way to helping that just by picking up your stuff and spending a few extra dollars. So, for Miss Jen and Jay, I've been the Ramblin' Man. Also, Mr. Sleepy Pants. Also, what time is it? We'll see you all next time here on Minute to Skim It. That's the name of the show.
Mint Hunter's next.